All right, next Friday again. One more episode. Today we have Michael and Barry. They're both from the floxdev team, and I had a chat with them previously and thought the community might want to know more about the product. Um, in short, floxdev is a sort of profile manager that you can use to handle your builds. Making a very bad description of it, so I will, I will
No,
let
it's the
maybe.
description.
Do you wanna intro yourself, maybe Barry, and then Michael after?
Sure. So my name is Barry, and I work at the D Shaw Group, and I'm the product manager responsible for the Flux beta that we're opening up now.
And Michael.
Uh, yes. So I started with sysadmin about 30 years back, and in the time since then, I've been doing a variety of roles. But currently, I'm in charge of build and release engineering for the D Shaw Group.
So there was a post on Discord on Discourse about Flux, but not everyone has read it yet, I think. So maybe we can start with a short description.
Sure. Yeah. So when I describe Flux, or what I think about Flux is for Nix users in the Nix community, really it's a platform where the intention is to try to make developing, building, and deploying Nix packages easier for people who don't know Nix and people who are already Nix experts. And our goal with it really is to try to help the Nix community grow, to try to bring new people into the Nix community who maybe don't think it's extremely accessible right now. We want to contribute to that effort and the ecosystem around it. And we think, depending on how you use Nix today or don't, there's a number of different things that you can get out of Flux. We can talk about the global profile management. We can talk about the globally distributed store. I can go through the architecture at a high level, but what ties all those pieces together is the goal of making Nix more accessible.
So you built a product on top of Nix in that goal where you're trying to simplify the user experience so that people that don't know Nix, maybe they're not developers, they can still use the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's a fair description. And the reason we originally built it too is that at the D Shaw Group, we have some incredible engineers who really wanted to build with Nix. And Michael can talk about why that is. And so we originally built Flux for them to make it easier for them to do that. And then we kind of looked around and we said, okay, maybe other people are having similar problems, either at other organizations or individuals. And so we wanted to open it up to see if that was the case and if anybody else could really benefit from it like we did.
All right, so at the moment you're making it publicly accessible. There's a beta, but you're not selling anything. You just want feedback, people that use it for free. And
Yeah, that's totally right.
mhm.
We're definitely not anywhere near the stage of thinking about selling anything. We're just trying to see what the Nix community thinks of it first before anything else. Because we know it helped us. I know it helped me, but I've been using it for so long that it's hard for me to say whether it'll help other people as well. And so we just want to hear from the community. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's stupid? And we're open to all of that feedback. And while we're hearing those things, I mean, we're trying to build new tech on top of it that answers people's concerns. We can talk about what we did this week later if we want to, but that's the high level.
Sorry, guys.
All
Uh,
good.
do you, should we jump into a demo maybe so people get a better sense of how it works? You know what it can do.
Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So the first thing to say is there's a few different parts of the Phlox ecosystem, like I was saying, and different people are going to care about different parts. All of that is covered in our documentation here. I think the how it works section does a pretty good job of explaining what the different pieces are. And so before I get into the demo, I just want to go over it. If you know Nix at a high level, what we've done is we've created a system where instead of managing a Nix daemon and a Nix store on every host where you have where you want to use Nix, we proxy all of the Nix commands back to a central daemon that manages a globally shared Nix store. And then we've built file systems, which we call NPFS and ICFS, that distribute the contents of that store to everyone who might need packages or profiles on demand. And that's also allowed us to build profiles that synchronize globally, so you can synchronize your software across them. And then in addition to that, to make it easier for people to know where to find Nix expressions and to have a simpler CI/CD experience, we've developed a framework which we call the Nix Experts framework for organizing your Nix expressions into Nix Experts repos on GitHub, so you always know, where a particular expression is. So if you're familiar with Nix, that's kind of the high level three big parts. There's the globally distributed store, there's the globally synchronized profiles, and then there's the framework for organizing it all. So I can talk about the profiles first. So to make a profile, it's super simple. There's a CLI and there's a web app to do it. We can just come in here and say, we'll name it Zimbatim, and just press create, and it comes up. And then depending on whether you prefer the CLI or the web app, you can search for packages here. So I want to add ANCAT, I can do that. If I want to add something more serious like the Stripe CLI, I can do that. And then I can use that profile anywhere Phlox is installed. So I'll go to a machine in London, and you can check that Phlox is running using system control status. This green dot means it's up and running. And then I can activate that profile using Phlox run. And so what Phlox run does is it just creates a shell that appends a specific profile and my default profile to my path. And then I can use whatever I've installed on the profile.
Yay.
Right. And that's going to be true everywhere that Phlox is installed, like I said. So I can go over here, and I can also reference it at the full path if I want to type it all out. And the reason it's hanging there for a moment is that nancat isn't downloaded. The profile is aware that it contains nancat, but it hasn't actually been pulled to the machine yet. So when we run that command, the command hangs for a moment while in the background we check our local cache, find out it's not there, and then download it and run it. So your commands will never break, but they may hang momentarily if someone's recently made a change to your profile. And then we think this is really neat because different people can use one person's profile. So for instance, Michael could go and use the profile that I just made, and we can use that to synchronize our tools everywhere that we're working and make sure that everybody's using the same versions of things and things don't break because they get out of sync. So that's a little bit about globally synchronized profiles, and we can talk about what we think some of the cool use cases are for that later. The other big component that I mentioned is development and this globally synchronized store. So in order to make the process of CI/CD super simple, we created this Nix Experts framework where your Nix expressions go into a single repo in your GitHub account called Nix Experts. Let me see if I can pull mine up.
So just people on the chat are asking if it goes through Fuse.
Yeah,
So,
Michael, do you want to talk about how the file systems are implemented briefly?
Sure. Happy to do so. And regarding earlier, I was hearing a terrible echo. I've solved that. I can now hear what's going on. So yes, there are actually two Fuse daemons involved and they're customized to the very unique requirements of the two things. The first is the profile, Nix profile file system. And that's the job of the profile file system is to serve up that top level profile link that points at the generation, and then the subsequent generation link that points to a package. These are very unique in Nix because the relative link, the top level link, is always a relative link, and it can't be cached. It needs to be constantly, well, it's volatile. It can change at any time to point to a new generation. Whereas the generation link is immutable, as is the package that it points to. So NPFS is our Fuse driver that provides access to just those symlink traversals. Thereafter, they point to a path in the Nix store, and that's served up by our immutable caching file system, ICFS. And that will simply block awaiting the system call. Sorry, it'll block the system call, and it'll download the packages on demand and then serve it up from there. So everything from that first user environment package that's looked up to the subsequent looking up the applications, and then all the subsequent libraries just cascade.
Yeah, and we think that's super neat because you can then use profiles and packages and interact with the store, which is remote, and not have to think about the fact that you're doing that at all. It all feels local after that first hang where the package is downloaded. And then thereafter, actually, because we implement this as a Fuse file system, we get better performance than local in a lot of cases because we're able to cache lookups and do a couple other fancy optimizations. So the file system is really powerful. And I can show you a little bit of the development now.
So I guess in an enterprise setting where you have Red Hat machines, CentOS, you don't need to install Nix, you just install Flux, and then Flux takes care of the Nix daemon protocol and proxies that to the central build farm, and it mounts the Fuse file systems, and then from there it's all transparent. Like it's almost like you have a Nix, but you have like this remote builder for free, and you have access to the whole store transparently.
Yeah, that's the idea, that you can benefit in all the ways you might want to from using Nix on every machine in a team without having to actually scale the difficulty of managing state and worrying about garbage collection and updating your Nix daemons on all of them in some synchronous way. You just have to worry about having Flox installed, and then we take care of the rest.
Cool.
That's exactly it.
I think people want to know the details, but maybe you want to finish the demo first?
Yeah, I just want to show I'm sorry I'm pushing for the demo. I just think this part's really cool.
Yeah. Let's finish the demo and then we can go back to the implementation details.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you guys can see my screen again?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I have here just a super simple Python application that prints information about itself. And right now it's printing that in green. And I've initialized a Git repo for it, but I haven't created a Nix expression for it. And when you're using Phlox and you want to start the process of CI/CD using the Nix Experts framework, you just run Phlox init to create your Nix expression. And this is going to hang for a moment because, again, we serve our CLIs through profiles so that we can update them and improve them without people having to download all of Phlox again. So we're using some of Phlox to serve some of Phlox. So here we select the package namespace, and because we're making a Python application, we're going to choose packages. Now we choose the builder. I want a Python 3 application, so I'm going to say 6. And then I select the name. And it's going to ask me which branch of the source repo I want to build this off of, in case I want to be testing against a feature branch. And then it auto-generates my Nix expression for me. And all I have to worry about now is figuring out where to put the dependencies that I do have. And so we really like this because it reduces, for new Nix users, it reduces the time it takes to go from a project that's building with like setup tools or something like that to a project that's also being packaged by Nix. So I only have one dependency, as we saw, which is just on term color. So I add that here. I save. And now I can just run Phlox commit. So the Phlox CLI, you use it to interact with your Nix Experts repo. You'll notice that there's no default.nix here. And the reason, again, is that instead of the Nix expression living in your source code, it lives in this separate repo. And that's a really powerful idea for us because it allows us to use that repo as a runbook for Hydra to drive the process of CI. So we just run Phlox commit. And this will pull up, those are some nasty colors, but this is the change to my Nix Experts repo. This is the diff where you see me adding the new expression. And then I can just push that.
So so that's a public repo called Nix Experts that is tied
so
to
if we
your
go
user.
here, you can see mine where I've just pushed new demo. If we go to packages, you can see all of the different applications that I've made. And here's the one we just pushed. So the structure of the Nix Experts repo mimics the structure of Nix packages, so people are familiar with it. Then I can check on the status of my build over here. So we use GitHub webhooks to automate the process of kicking off a build after that. And so that was demo 8, and it looks like it's already been built. And you can see we're building for ARM, we're building for x86 by default, where we want to add Darwin support, and we're working on that now, and support for 32-bit Linux as well. So it's done. So that means I can just install it to a profile. So to install from the command line, I use the floxpm command, and this is the CLI for controlling your profiles. Then I say the profile I want to install it to, so we'll install it to floxdemo. And then I name the package. So the Nix Experts framework creates a channel of software that corresponds to your GitHub account and corresponds to all of the source packages in that account that you want to build. And then I specify the branch that I'm building off of. So I'm building off of master. And I think we named it demo 8. But I totally forgot to specify the install verb. So it's possible that I misnamed this. We can go ahead and check out the profile manager to see if it's showing up in the list of packages yet. Unselect the other channels, just select mine. Yeah, and it looks like demo 8 is not there yet. Michael, do you have any idea why that might be, if the job is finished?
I'm just going to look at, so architecturally, what's happening is the Hydra build has been triggered, and that has rolled off the assembly line. And then there's a job that then that notices new builds in Hydra and then pulls them into the floxdev database. So I just this moment see the log message to say that the package list was updated. So let me just see real quick if it's coming in yet.
Okay, so there's a bit of latency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I can go ahead and show you some more about the profiles themselves and what makes them a little bit different from standard Nixenv profiles. So here you can see I have just like a list of all the packages that I have installed to my default profile. It tells me where the path is, and then it says there's a next upgrade that's going to take place. And what that has to do with is profiles implement standard upgrade policies, and you can choose from a few that we have now. We can implement more if people want different ones. And whenever there's a new version of a package that becomes available for something that's in a profile on this regular schedule, whether it's weekly or monthly or as soon as it becomes available, this will render a new global generation of the profile and notify all the hosts to switch into that new generation. So that means that you're able to keep your profiles up to date with Nix packages without having to do any kind of maintenance work on them or having to think about the update. And in teams and enterprise contexts, that's really nice because it allows us to pay down technical debt in really small increments. We never have to deal with big bang releases where a ton of versions move forward a super long period of time at the same time, breaking everything. We have these much smaller releases, and we can see a change log for everything that has changed in the profile throughout time. And if I want to jump back to a previous generation globally, maybe because something broke unexpectedly, I can do that. And that's the power of building this kind of system with Nix. Any other approach wouldn't allow this kind of atomic rollback and roll forward.
So does it mean that you track Nix was unstable or some Nix packages churn? Like, how is it tied to the version of Nix packages that you use?
Yeah.
Very good question. So we pull in updates. We merge in updates from Nixos Unstable on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then we stop at Wednesday, waiting to make sure that all of the job sets build cleanly. We have that much time before Saturday to fix any problems. Then on Saturday, we merge what we call our unstable branch over to the staging branch. And that's when all the users' job sets get built. So Barry kind of flew through that a little bit. But every user gets 2 job sets. The staging job set, which builds off of our staging version of Nix packages, and then the master job set, we should probably rename, that gets built off of our stable version of Nix packages. We merge from staging to stable on the first Saturday of the month. So there's no perfect solution here. Everybody with a variety of users, we're going to have a variety of requirements as to when they'd like to see things appear in Nix packages. But we are curating this collection for the benefit of our users with the goal of always keeping things moving forward, but also being there to assist and to bring forward patches as required to meet everybody's requirements. So there's a curation aspect of this as well to the tool.
So you know, like on a weekly basis, if some profile is broke, then you can keep an eye on it and try to quickly fix things.
This is a little bit nitpicky here, but it wouldn't be the profile that breaks, it would be the build that breaks. The great thing that by basing Flox profiles on the Hydra outputs, there's a firewall between breaking builds and profiles, being able to move forward and backwards over time.
Okay, so let's say like 99 profiles are successful, but the 100th is failing for some reason on Hydra. Then at the end of the week, when you do the update, you would only update the 99 profiles and then the 100th would stay on the previous version.
You mean builds, right? But yes, so the 99 builds that succeeded, they could percolate out to the profiles that used them. And then that other one that didn't succeed, no new builds available to upgrade to.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Michael, we're still able to go in and see specifically which of those builds are failing. So before they propagate to production, we can fix them and then make them available, and then they'll just queue up next time around.
Yeah, that's the entire point. That's why we freeze that migration. Freeze the import of Nix Unstable between Wednesday and Saturday. It gives us opportunity to groom that collection, make sure that everything is looking good. It also means that if there were 2 mega rebuilds that get released in the span of a week for Nix Unstable, our Hydra cluster isn't spending that whole week compiling Nix packages over and over again.
Do you pull from the public cache, or do you rebuild everything yourself?
It's a really good question. We rebuild everything ourselves, and there are a couple of reasons for that. That's probably, I'm happy to get into, but it's probably too technical at this point.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry, Barry. Do you want to continue the demo?
It's all good.
I think there's still a bit.
I'm going to see if the live demo gods are being kinder to me now. Seems like they are not yet. So I can just show a few more profile features as well. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. So I was talking about the various profile features. We talked about the upgrade policies. Now, Michael and I have implied, the default upgrade policy is to pull in a new package from the new set of builds that Hydra's created. So by default, what's happening is you're updating the versions of your dependencies. But there are also times when, instead of upgrading a profile to just contain whatever's newest, you may want to create pipelines of profiles, right? So you may have an experimental profile that you deploy to some fraction of your machines or users, a QA profile that you deploy, and finally a production profile. So instead of upgrading from what's new patches that are available, you can upgrade from or upgrade to the user environments that are in other profiles. So I can create a production profile and have that fed by a QA profile and have that fed by an experimental profile, so that I can have incremental rollouts while still having this notion of profiles that are globally synchronized everywhere. The other thing that I want to just quickly show off too is when you do have issues, if you're using it, and as you can see, it's a beta, problems are going to come up. They're coming up for us now. You can just hop over to our help forum. We have a discourse, mainly because we didn't want to spam the Nixos discourse, where people post questions and our team, Michael and I, the people we work with, try to respond and fix the issues as fast as possible. So if you haven't already, feel free to join. We also have a Slack channel or a Slack workspace where we can provide help in chat. So if something ever does go wrong, we're standing by to try to help fix it.
All right.
Barry, do you want to? I've been chatting with Lewis in the background, and it looks like we're good to go, although we missed the trigger for that last build. Let's show how to install a derivation by path.
Sure.
So in times where this comes up more often for us in practice when Hydra's chewing through a big mass rebuild of Nix packages or whatever, but sometimes it's super important to be able to install a package out to production right away. And with that, it's still possible with floxpm to be able to install by Nix or path. So Barry, if you share your screen and do a manual build, we can install that and show what that looks like.
Yeah. So, as Michael said, another thing you can do is a manual build. So you run flox build in the repo the same way you'd run Nix build. But again, we don't have a Nix daemon running here. So what's happening is we're wrapping up the source code and we're grabbing the Nix expression and we're shipping that off to our storehouse where we have the Nix daemon running, and then it ships that off to the build farm, builds it, and sends us back the logs as well as the path in the Nix store that it's actually rendered this package at. And I have a symlink, a result symlink, just like you're used to, that points to that store path. And as Michael was alluding to, we don't need to force every package to go through the process of CI to be able to install them to a profile. We can just install it by store path directly. So I can do floxpm install to the flox demo profile and then read link result. And now it's installed to my profile. Just going to boot up that profile. Oop.
Watch run.
Yep. And then run the command from there. And like I said, this is just a super simple Python program that prints out information about itself. And
so you have one repo for the project, for the package, and one repo for the source of the project, right? They're disconnected.
One Correct.
Repo, yes.
Okay. There's one repo for the source, and then there's another repo which contains all Nix expressions for the GitHub organization.
All right.
So that's how we collect all the Nix expressions for the entire organization in a single place where it can be used as a run book for Hydra.
So if for example, the set of dependencies change in my program, I'm going to do one commit for the updates on the program source code side and then one of the Nix side.
Yes, very, very good. It takes a while to wrap your head around that, but that's correct. And by giving a tool that works in the context of your source directory, people don't have to actually switch between those directories to do that work. So they edit, they git commit in place, and then they flox commit. They flox edit and flox commit their expression changes.
Yeah.
And then I guess Hydra is subscribed to the Git notification from GitHub. There's some webhook that fires and triggers the rebuild.
Yes, there's an elaborate mechanism around receiving that webhook and making all the magic happen.
Yeah. We talk about it in quite a bit of detail in our documentation in the How It Works section. There's a, let me see if I can pull it up. There's a page on continuous integration, and we walk through each of the steps that are involved in this. So if anybody wants to read about it, they can go ahead and check it out there. I am going to go ahead and remove that package from my profile.
Or you can roll back.
I'd rather make a new generation.
Okay.
Is there two schools of thinking? Always go forward.
Yeah.
And there it's done. As Michael said, our what we were trying to do, show off the CI, it's now done. So the package is available in the package list here. I select channel for my own personal Git organization, and demo 8's available in staging and master. We'll install it to floxdemo from master. And then I just want to quickly show off how everywhere that Flox is installed. So I'm over here, I'm on a machine that's in the US. And things are running correctly. So even though I didn't explicitly install the package over here, I can use it. So I've aliased this Linux command to invoke this path over here 5 times a second. And it's hanging because we didn't have it downloaded directly onto this machine. And now you see the clock ticking forward. And we can do the same thing.
So Linux invokes Linux demo. And Linux is basically a for loop that runs the program. Or it runs watch.
Yes, it's just, that's correct. It's doing watch 0.2 seconds. That path.
Okay.
And so over here, I tried invoking it in India, didn't work because Flox wasn't running. So I can just restart that with system control. And what's happening now is, again, it's hanging while the daemons start, and we can see to make sure that it started correctly.
Got it.
Yep. And now we see that it's running. So now if I run Linux, same alias as above, that should go ahead and work. And so now we have it running everywhere. Let's go ahead and make some kind of change, update the code. So let's say I don't like the green, I want to make it red. So I've changed my source code, so I need to use the git CLI instead of the Flox one, just like you're used to. And once again, that should kick off the process of CI. We'll see if it works this time. So I'll check out my jobs again. And we see that we haven't yet triggered a new evaluation. So we wait a moment.
So every user has access to this view in.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can see your own jobs. We can see output logs too from specific evaluations. We can see the closure of dependencies. This is just standard Hydra stuff for the most part. But yeah, this is all set up for you, ready to go.
Do you have custom patches on top of Hydra?
We do have a couple of patches on top of Hydra. One of them I was discarding. I'm trying to remember what the other one was. They're very minor. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, outputs. Yeah, there was one problem, or outputs to install was not being, that meta attribute was not being propagated to the fake derivations on the output channel. So that's a patch that we've written and is going upstream.
Yeah, most of the Hydra work that we've done though, and we have done some, is being upstreamed to the community.
Yeah.
Like I think Graham has been working on a big refactoring to make various parts of it more efficient, and we're pushing that out upstream as opposed to blocks.
Nice.
Yeah. Barry, those builds were marked as
they
succeeded.
finished, so I'll go back to.
Okay. Yeah, that's the time where you get some coffee or some tea.
Yep. But just to show you, yeah, so they're here, finished 48 seconds ago, and we can see, although I didn't bump the version number, we append this little revision tag to show you that it's updated. And then we go over here to Flox demo. Looks like we have an old demo installed too, so we'll remove that. Okay.
So what does it mean here? We have some package that has an update, and we can trigger the... Because, okay, let me see if I understood. There's you set the profile to weekly updates, but now you actually want to upgrade right now, so you're gonna override this.
So let's say I don't want to wait. I just want to go ahead and upgrade now as opposed to upgrading at this time tomorrow. I can just go ahead and force that to happen by pressing upgrade, and it'll tell you, okay, if you're going into this new generation, what's going to change. And it says it's going to bump my revision tag here. And that's our green to red change. So when I do that, we should see these timers here and here stop as they realize that the top level generation link is now pointing to a new user environment, which is then pointing to a new version of the package. And then that'll be downloaded and invoked, and we should see the change. Yep.
Boom.
And there's never a moment where your system is in an inconsistent state, right? Thanks to Nix, it's all atomic, and things don't break. If they had broken, though, like let's say I pushed a buggy version of the package, or I actually realize now that I see it, I prefer green, I can go ahead and roll back to a previous generation. So it's showing me which one is active, and this will tell me what was in the last generation, and I can just switch into it. And that change, you'll notice, is much faster because our cache still has the packages from the previous generation available locally. We didn't have to reach out to the storehouse or any of our download servers. to get it.
This Florian on the chat asked how it handles the substitution. Does it download the NAR file in the background, or what does it do when there's a cache miss?
So maybe I can ask a follow-up question. So how is the question, when a Nix store path that isn't in the local cache invoked, what's happening? Like how
Yeah, I think that's the question, is when you hit a new store path, it's gonna somehow download the derivation in the machine. And
so that's where ICFS comes in. That's where our fuse file system comes in. So Michael, you can go through the rundown again, but the short answer is we block the system call and run the download protocol.
But typically, when downloading a NAR profile, we're talking about an operation that involves the Nix daemon on the Nix, in the context of an instantiation, right? And here it's important to remember that there's just one Nix daemon in all of this setup. It's on one host. So when I'm actually not understanding the context of the substitution in that regard. This one host has all of the Nix expressions local. It has the Hydra instance local. It has the entire cache of Nix store local. So unless we're talking about like a binary substitution from server, there are no substitutions taking place really.
Yeah, I think he meant in terms of you have the cache, which is the central build server, and then the client actually downloads, or in Nix terms, sometimes we say, so if you use like the normal Nix, you can select which cache you want to use, and that's called the substitutor.
I see. Okay, I understand. So yes, in the context of an ICFS client, you just you allocate however much disk you'd like to give to the cache, and then ICFS manages a high and low watermark to discard the least recently used packages. So there's no requirement to, apart from sizing that appropriately to contain your working set, there's no requirement to manage that in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, so you don't need to garbage collect ever. Or,
No.
I mean, you still do, but it's in the background. It's Flux.
Correct.
That's right.
It's all automatic.
Yeah, we wanted the experience of it to be as automated as possible, so that, again, if you don't know you're using Flux or you don't know you're using Nix, you can still benefit from ensuring that your software is reproducible and will run the way you want. Like if you're a data scientist or you're a business analyst, you need to write some code. Maybe you don't want to have to learn about garbage collecting. You don't want to have to learn about, writing Nix expressions. We can just have someone configure a profile for you and configure the packages for you, and then you use them like you would anything else, and they're just there magically, and systems or IT can update them, and you just get the updates magically, and you can focus on doing your thing.
I think there's a follow-up question. Is the fuse system doesn't know the dependency graph?
Absolutely not. It's at invocation time that the application itself reveals the dependency graph as it stat paths successively. But that said, we do record the entire path of closure of paths for every profile as we render profiles. So something that you'll find unique to a Flux profile is that the top level directory of the profile contains a file called requisites.txt. That is a modification we've made to Nix to record that file. And that is necessary on a client because there is no Nix daemon. That's the means by which a Nix daemon can understand the entire set closure of paths for a profile and cause them to be downloaded if necessary. And by necessary, there are some profiles that people would like to see constantly available. We referred to this as a pinned Flux profile. And there's a floxpm download command that will download it for you, but that doesn't actually pin the profile, the actual packages. It's the job of the NPFS daemon to pin those packages over time with successive profile generation. And we're working on getting that particular feature out in the Flox beta right now.
Okay. So if you're in offline mode, you might not have all the dependencies.
If you're in offline mode today with the Flox beta, just run floxpm download before you go offline, and you'll be fine.
Okay.
But in future, you won't have to remember to do that. That's all I'm saying.
In the future, you can just specify, you're on some laptop or some desktop, and you just say, like, I want to make sure this profile is always available. And then whenever you connect to the internet, we check to see if the latest user environment and its closure is completely there. And if it's not, we download it then while you have your connection. So if you lose it, you'll be okay.
Yeah, I think someone asked, what if the client loses internet connection or latency is high? But I think you answered that. Sorry, I just blanked out. I had a follow-up question, but I forgot. So what is maybe we can go into, or did you finish the demo, or did you want to show some more?
We can show more. If it sort of depends what you and the viewers want to see. We have Nixos support, which works a little bit differently because you have a Nix daemon to manage your Nix store already there on your machine. And we didn't want to interfere with that, so we can show you how that works if you want to see that. We can talk more about the performance enhancements that we made, or we can talk about some use cases. It's sort of entirely up to what the viewers want to see.
I don't know now, but I think people generally want to know. I think they understand what it is now because you made a good presentation. I guess the next thing is, where does it go from here? How do you see Flux evolving? Do you have any features? I know you said macOS support is coming. Is there anything else on your plate that you're thinking about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So going forward, let me back up. Right now, our main goal is to see what people like to use it for and find problems and source feedback from the community. So one thing, for instance, that came up last week was you said, oh, you wanted a way to activate a profile, and that just hadn't occurred to us, and that's where Flox Run came from. And so we want to just generally right now see if there are ways in which we can make this thing easier to use, suss out the bugs that exist, while learning about what people want to use it for. So that's step one. And then after that, I think we don't really know specifically where it goes in terms of, is this going to be a business or what kind of business? Our main objective in the medium term is let's use this to get as many people as we can into the Nix ecosystem and building with Nix. And if they're doing that with Flox, great. If they learn about Nix and then they through Flox and they don't want to use Flox, great. So our goal for the medium term is just growth, right? And then after that, I think it depends on how those two things go, really. Do people want to use it, and are we able to intro new people to Nix and make it more accessible?
Yeah. So yeah, Flux is a big thing, right? There's Hydra, then there's the Nix expression on one side and the profile. Is it possible to use one or without the other? Sorry, Florian is asking, is it I need to use hosted Hydra, or can I deploy my own? Can I plug it
Yeah.
into another CI potentially?
So
I think it's very tightly integrated, and uh, I can't imagine integrating just arbitrary Hydra instances into Flox. But ultimately, Flox provides the exact same set of Nix commands that you're used to. The only difference is that when you run our wrapped versions, they proxy all the interactions back to our Nix daemon. So if you provide a Nix expression to build what you want to see built, our server will build it. There's nothing else to it. So but when it comes to Hydra, though, to keep that churn under control, we do curate those views of Nix packages into the staging and stable branches. And if yes, you can use overlays to override anything at any time. So and we endeavor to keep those as current as possible. But no, we don't. We can't have Hydra building from arbitrary pinned versions of Nix packages. That would be very hard to maintain over time. Store would go huge.
I'll caveat that with saying we also have very little certainty about the technical direction that it's going to take in the next 2 to 3 months. So we definitely can't do that today, but it may be possible that we're able to refactor things in a way that's significantly more modular if enough people are looking for that. So definitely
You're
something to
absolutely
think
right.
about that we could later. I don't want to say, my point is, I don't want to say anything is impossible at this stage because we just don't know.
Yeah, it was designed for
we just released the beta.
It was designed for your own internal use cases, so you made it like integrated to solve all your problems, and then depending.
But yeah, it's entirely possible.
Thank you, Barry, for correcting me, because this product was born in an enterprise setting. We're making no secret of that, and so this question has been asked of me in an enterprise setting often enough that I came up with my rote answer. Because in an enterprise, you do want to restrict the bloat, and in enterprise, you want to also curate that collection for security reasons and licensing reasons and compliance. So I have to admit, I'm representing more of an enterprise mindset in that response.
Yes. I'll say, that we don't know. We're definitely open to having conversations about that. And if that's something you want, tell us so we know. And then we can figure out what direction we go in, because I think we're going to want to make it more modular for different kinds of use cases. Like, we want people to be able to use some of the CLI, for instance, without necessarily having to use all of Flox. Again, because our goal is to make Nix more accessible. If we just help the Nix community build some kind of CLI that helps you go from no Nix expression to a Nix expression a little bit faster, that's great for us. So
yeah,
that's definitely
there's also Flakes that is being worked on, which is sort of or in competition with your experts part of the project, I think.
Yeah, it's a different format for organizing Nix expressions, but we don't think it's completely in competition. Ilko's a beta tester. He seems to really like Flox.
We're
talking to him about
not bad competition, but there's some
we're talking
overlap.
about figuring out ways to integrate. Basically, we don't want to stifle Flakes and in any kind of way or get in the way of the community's plans for integrating with Flakes.
They definitely serve different purposes. Flakes is an opportunity to collaborate across organizations, whereas Nix Experts is a fantastic framework within an organization to just impose order and help departments know where to find the Nix expressions to build other department software. So I think there's certainly room enough for both in this world, and they're quite compatible, I think.
One guy asked, is it fuzz open source?
Is what open source?
Is Flux open source?
No, not right now. We wanted to get it out as fast as possible and see if other people would want to use it. And that meant not open sourcing things yet, but we're open to having those kinds of conversations going forward. So if there's specific parts of it you'd like to see open sourced, it's something we're interested in possibly doing, especially the client-side tooling, which we think there's a lot of potential to share with people and have the community collaborate with us on it. Because already, like with as few users as we have, we've got more requests for new client-side tooling than we can possibly field.
Actually, I was thinking, since you proxy, we didn't really go into this in detail, but since you proxy the Nix daemon protocol to your build farm, it means that in theory you could also do local Nix builds on your machine, and that would be forwarded to the farm, right?
So
Yeah,
I'm
thinking
not
on
sure.
on my feet, I don't know that we could trust the provenance of an artifact coming from a user's machine. One of the things that we benefit by having a single Nix store for the world is the same derivation doesn't get built twice. So somebody in Australia can build it, and someone in the UK can build it, come to do the same command later, and will be served up the previous derivation. It's perfectly efficient in that regard, which is fantastic. But it also means we couldn't possibly permit an unvetted machine to contribute an built artifact.
Right, but they could still talk the Nix daemon protocol and submit derivations to build to the build.
Yes.
farm.
Yes.
So in that sense, you could have like your own CI. You install Flux in your CI, and then instead of relying on the Hydra and all this to update the profile, you could use the subset that just talks to Flux, and then it shows out the builds like that. So that would be in competition with nextbuild.net actually, a little bit.
Yeah, that would be
if you used it in that way. You'd be sidestepping a lot of our system, but you could definitely build something that does that.
Yeah. And I guess the benefit of, just to think that through to the end, the benefit of it is that the artifact would then be available in a Flox profile. Right.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate we will. I wouldn't think that we would want to be a binary substitution cache for the world. That's not been our aim up till now.
Okay. Cool. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about?
I think we talked about most of the things that we wanted to go over. One thing that has been, I guess, a main use case that we're thinking about recently for teams and enterprises is using profiles to manage tools and to set up development environments for people. We didn't talk a ton about this, but we've heard from a bunch of our users that traditionally when they want to set up a local development environment and they're onboarding a new dev, that's something that can take a few days. Various things break, and especially when they're onboarding non-technical users who don't know how to set up their own environments, a bunch of things break. We think the combination of profiles and some pre-configured Nix expressions to populate them make a super clean solution for this, and that's one of the use cases we're most interested in addressing first. So apart from that, I think we covered a lot of ground. If people have follow-up questions or thoughts, they can email us or Slack us. Our Slack group is floxdev.slack.com. They can join the discourse. They can comment on our post. There's a ton of ways to reach us. And like I said before, we want to hear from you, even if you only have bad things to say. Personally, I want to hear from you more if you only have bad things to say. We need to get all the feedback that we can right now to figure out what we do next. So if you can take the time to say it's nice or to complain, that would mean a lot to us. And we're just super happy to have this opportunity to share this stuff with you guys. It's been something we've been working on for a long time, and it's nice to get some new eyes on it.
Thanks, and thanks for coming in the stream.
Yeah, of course, Jonas. This was fun.
Alright, I think we'll wrap this up. I don't have any follow-up questions, so yeah, thanks for joining. I will stop the stream now. And everyone, thanks for watching, and see you soon. Bye bye.